Hello, I'm the Pink Phantom. Welcome to my podcast, where we will go deep into the lair of the purple worm instead of down into the rabbit hole, where we'll voyage into the astral realm of my mind and explore the verse of nerd culture. This is Phantom Thoughts. This OctOSR feedback episode features calls from Jason from Nerds RPG Varietycast. So let's get to the calls.
Hey, Jason here. I rather like your name of Phantom Feedback. Maybe there's a cultural thing I'm not aware of that makes that a bad thing. I don't know. I'm kind of an old man, so I'm not always in touch with what all the kids say these days. Thank you for responding to my questions. I really appreciate it. The other thing about the idea of more tactile things, you talk about how taking notes helps and different play styles as we get older and we adjust to maybe later game sets. Is you're seeing maybe not a resurgence, because some of us always did this, but the physical notebook, the DM notebook, where you try to sketch out, and this is something Brandish Goldhelm over at Runehammer is popularized to a large degree, but we did it before. Spike Pit used to share pictures of his notebooks and all on, but the idea of doing a physical notebook to run your games out of instead of electronic device, I think, is part of that movement as well. I know in the past, in doing seminars and different things, I was told that really the best way for memory that they believe is where you manually write your notes and then you come back a day later and type them up, and clean them up. And that way you're writing them down and then you're also going rereading them a day later or 2 days later and then typing them up. That helps really concrete it down. I don't know. But I do like to run at it a DM journal personally for games. I don't always do it, but I do like to run off a physical piece of paper instead of a program. But obviously that's going to vary person to person, and maybe again because I'm old. But anyway, great job and keep up the great work. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, I corrected myself because I recognize that a lot of times my first inclination is to go for the cheesy option and, phantom feedback. I guess it would only be cheesy if I spelled feedback with a PH. So yeah, I think I may just call it phantom feedback. As far as DM notebooks and taking notes, really that can apply, I think, to anything, in an RPG session. I think it's probably always better if, the players are making maps as they go, even if a map is presented to them, something they map out. We're taking a copy of a map that maybe a handout that a GM gives them and marking it up on their own, and something they can go over and look at and mark in their own way so they can remember, yeah, there was an NPC over here, and there was a trap here, and there was a bugbear over here. And something that could help. It's also something that could help, session recall, session notes, remembering where you were when it's time for the next session. I know some of the live plays I listen to, I always like it when they give, a little recap at the beginning. That dates back to that 90s X-Men cartoon when at the beginning of the show they'd go previously on X-Men and give you a little summary of the plot points of previous episodes that won't apply to that episode. But yeah, I've always enjoyed a good notebook. I think there's something about using more of your senses, using tactile as well as your hearing and your sight. And it's also, it's still more flexible. I mean, digital can do a lot, especially if you're fluent in shortcuts and have a good setup and, get used to that. But, with paper, it's over here, it's over here, it's over here. Now it can become a chaotic mess. I'm looking at my desk right now and it's definitely a chaotic mess because it just tends to gravitate toward that state. I don't know what that says about my head. But you can sort it, you can put it together in different ways, spatially. You can organize it, you can shuffle it around so that you can see the things you need to see and cover up the things you don't need to see. And that's something you really can't do with digital. There's still not a good digital paper. There's e-ink and there's tablets and stuff you can write on, but there's not a good digital paper that can do all the things that you can do with a good simple notebook. So yeah, I think that's something that's very much worth doing. And, maybe it's just like you said at the beginning of the episode, at the beginning of your call, maybe it's just because I'm old too.
Hey, Pink Phantom, Jason here. I strongly prefer Theater of the Mind, but I recognize in some games it helps to have those tactical maps. There's no question about it. So, depending on the game, depending on how tactical things are, you may want those tactical battle maps. Even when I run Theater of the Mind, though, I tend to use a VTT like Zoom, or maybe you could do it on Discord or whatever, and put an image behind me. So I have an image up there that the players can see. If they're in a tavern, there's an image of a tavern scene, that kind of thing, right? And then the nice thing with Zoom is you have whiteboards. So you're doing Theater of the Mind, but if you need to sketch out a quick battle map, you can do that on the whiteboard. So you don't need to go to all the trouble of maps and minis and all that, is Gadget's helping me tell you. But you can just put the whiteboard up, sketch something out real quick, and then get back to the game. So that's what I do. But, every group, like you say, is different. Take care.
Theater of the Mind is definitely less, resource intensive, I guess. You don't have to put together an exact map, whether it's a digital map or a paper map that you create and lay out on the table, or setting up just figures or something on the table to move around and show position. I mean, if you're not sure where things are, then certainly having a map and some kind of tokens or markers or minis or something on it can give you a little more spatial awareness, and something like, usually I think combat, I think that's really where the nitty gritty, the part comes to, in terms of whether you go Theater of the Mind or you go maps and tokens, maps and minis, is going to be combat. I mean, certainly, something like Line of Sight, where you're in a dungeon or something and you're going around corners and stuff, that can help, and relative position of people. But, if you set down your marching order, the old standard of the marching order, and move around and just say, yeah, we're going down this corridor, we're peeking around the corner, we're listening at the door, or what have you, that can certainly serve just as well as, constantly having to move the map and move the minis around and swap out maps and things like that. I think most RPGs, you could probably do a lot of it Theater of the Mind. And certainly things like when you're having a conversation with NPCs, or you're having a negotiation, or you're, window shopping, or you're tromping through the wilderness, and you're just going in kind of a general direction. You're following whatever trail is there, or you're following your stars or your compass or what have you. A visual representation is not necessary. Everybody kind of knows what the general principle is, but if you're going with a really RPG that's got really tactical combat, then tokens and some kind of a map is probably the best way to go. But yeah, there's a lot to be said for Theater of the Mind, and it's a well-established principle in a lot of OSR style games. Is just, we're going to do it Theater of the Mind. We're going to sit around a table. We've got a handful, we've got our character sheets in front of us, and the game master has the maps and the stats for the monsters and NPCs and what have you in front of them, and we're just going to go from there. We're going to take a journey in our minds. And that's going to do it for another episode of Phantom Thoughts. If you have any feedback you'd like to leave, you can contact me by leaving a voice message at anchor.fm/the-pink-phantom, or you can send an email to thepinkphantom1@gmail.com, or you can contact me on Twitter @thepinkphantom. The music in this episode was Strength of the Titans and Late Night Radio by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license from creativecommons.org/licenses/by/4.0.